Do you like chimpanzees, ninja stars, and naked pastors?
The Naked Pastor Podcast.
This is the podcast
I like it.
for you.
Hey guys, welcome back to our third and final installment of our church security series. As you can tell from the intro, we got a little crazy by the end, but I hope you guys enjoy it. So as the person who stands up in the most vulnerable spot in the church,
Yeah.
what does it mean to you to have some type of security safety kind of team? And I know you said it's not the pastor's personal bodyguard. It is not.
No.
You know? But what does it mean to you to know that you've got a group of people out there whose whole goal is to keep, like you said, how did you word that?
I don't know. I'm sure it was brilliant.
It was-
Sure,
I'm with
well
you.
articulated.
Oh my goodness, it was perfect.
As I started to talk, I was like,
borderline
wait a second, my
inspiration.
mouth is running and my brain is shutting down. So, but no, to kind of keep disruptions from happening and stuff like that, you've got a group that's really kind of dedicated to keep the disruptions down.
Sure.
So what does that mean as the person who stands in that most vulnerable spot in the church, honestly?
You remember when, like, George W. Bush had that shoe thrown at him?
Oh, yeah.
I'm showing some age.
Yeah.
You know? Like it
You're
was,
the youngest one in the team.
You're showing age. We're filming on right here.
he was so quick, and then the whatever I'm calling
Secret
it.
Service.
Yeah, Secret Service man
Service.
just tackled the guy.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like. Man, I just need reaction time like that. It's like, just do that right there. But I think it's just an extra sense of safety for me personally to know that they're strategically sitting where they need to sit. And you're right about like the signals, like stepping forward towards somebody or going, whatever it is, the baseball signal to this guy.
That's that.
Yeah, that's
That's the high sign. That's gravel.
That's for me. You can continue to do the work that God needs you to do.
That's right.
Where at the place where you need to be at.
Yeah.
And so that's the sense of safety for me personally. It's not a personal security guard.
Yeah,
Even though I have a pastor friend of mine in Memphis, Tennessee, who used to pastor a mega church, and where you saw the pastor, you saw Jeff or whatever. He was there. And that's good too. I mean, it's good, and not only to say, okay, let's get a meeting set up. Talk to Jeff over here. You know what I'm saying? He'll take your name and or do whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think and it depends on the size of the church and amount of volunteers. We always face, we haven't talked necessarily about the lack of volunteers, the people who don't want to do this, which is in every ministry, every created. So that's for us. I think it's one of these things it's an extra sense of safety for me.
Yeah.
I know they're there, especially newer folks. We want to trust everybody who comes into the church. You can't.
Yeah.
You want to, and they're there for a reason, whether it's to do harm or get saved. It's like they're there for a reason. So it's good for me. I like it.
Yeah. For me, it's just one thing I don't have to think about. I show up on Sunday morning and I really don't have to think about it because I know someone else is. Yeah. And so it's peace of mind, and it positions me to be able to do my primary responsibility or the things that only I can do because, once again, it's just peace of mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I guess I think I would lean more toward that exact same answer because I've never once thought in my mind of a bodyguard. In fact, I've watched, I think we've all watched those pastors, and that's why I like what you said. It's not our bodyguard, not our bodyguard. We've watched those pastors in these big churches who feel like they're super special, and they have these things called armor bearers walking around them, and it's like this crowd, they're untouchable, and it's like, man, even Jesus was touched by people in a crowd. He was available, he was reachable, and that's what we always want to be as pastors. And the last thing I would ever want anybody to think is that my life is more valuable than theirs because of something I happen to be doing at that given time of the day. It is not. No, I'm actually more vulnerable, sure, because I'm speaking things and my life has to try to line up with it. And that's why God gave me my wonderful wife to remind me where I failed.
That's right.
She has no mercy. And so, at that moment, I'm just not worried about our kids. I'm not worried about our people in another place. I'm not worried about our counters. I'm not worried about our ushers. I'm not worried about these people at all. We have this sort of a freedom there, and it never crosses my mind that this is there for my safety, because I've instructed our people that there is no level of value on anybody who comes in that church. No level of value is ever attributed to anybody. Like, I am not more important than somebody else. Yep. Somebody else is not more important. Somebody else's kid's not more important than mine. All of them are equally important, you know? And I've also told them, look, in the situation in our church, from where the person would have to go to get to me, I've got more protection than everybody else, because I got this huge oak pulpit in front of me. They'd have to bring a bazooka in there to get me, you know, like, and I've got a metal tank behind me, like it's 3/4 inch steel plate behind me. I could jump in. It would look kind of funny on the video, but you know, like, I have all of this natural protection in the situation we're at, so don't worry about me. And one event we were doing drive-in services, and this was kind of funny because we were doing drive-in services for a while, and a couple of the safety team members were getting really kind of nervous about how I was positioning myself, because I was positioning myself in a very open way. I was standing in the back of a pickup truck, and there was nothing behind me, and there was nothing but cars in front of me. You can't see through, and the sun's right in my eyes, so I can't even see half the time, you know. So our safety team had worked it out to where, you know, they knew how to protect people and how to corral in that area. But we had a Sunday morning, a florist decided to deliver during the middle of our drive-in service. And the florist was driving an old 80s model white beat-up Dodge van that was unmarked. It's like, this is the thing your parents warned you about not getting into, right? So the
creepy
guy,
white van.
right, right, and so they weren't aware for whatever reason that we were having an outdoor service and everything like that. And so the florist actually pulled down through our cemetery, and then realized they couldn't get anywhere that way. Well, that immediately alerted our safety team. There's a white van that's unmarked. So then they back out, and they're driving a little bit erratic, and I'm not mentioning the florist, but, you know, God bless them for this. And then they pull up behind me, down a driveway behind me, and they pull up and they kind of go cattywampus. You know that word, right? So the cattywampus part. Yeah. Like they're not parked like they're there to do business. They're parked like they didn't mean to be there, or something else worse. And it was beautiful, because I remember thinking in that moment, like, I get to die preaching. If I'm going to die right now, I get to die preaching, right? But I really wasn't thinking about dying. I was like, you know, I just hope they don't I hope they get it right. I don't want a bullet in my spinal cord. I want it in my head if you're going to do it, right? Like, I don't want to sit there and suffer. But that was like a fleeting thought. It didn't even matter to me, because I saw our safety team do their job, you know? And that poor florist got a big shock when 3 big guys approached them really quick, asking them what they were doing right there, you know. But it was kind of beautiful, because, again, I don't have to worry. We don't have to think about certain things.
No.
Yeah, and so much of it is personality driven from the pastor. Some pastors look at the responsibility of shepherd to care and to nurture and to lead and to guide, while some shepherds, our pastors, look at shepherding as, my responsibility is to teach you surrender, and I'm going to shear you, and I'm going to get meat from you, you know? And in other words, for me, I don't need someone to break up a conversation that somebody's trying to dictate my time or my schedule or my energy, because I'm comfortable saying, hey, schedule an appointment afterwards, and we'll set up some time, come back later, you know. But some shepherds, some pastors, they'd never say that. So they'll just emotionally be drained and allow someone to dictate their time, their energy in between services, etc. So I think that the responsibility of the security team sometimes is dependent on the personality or the needs of the shepherd or the pastor. So kind of what you were talking about.
Yeah, it's going to be different for all of us, I think.
That's right.
You know, that level of safety, like, again, for our team, they're never told to come find me and protect me. That's not their priority. Their priority is to get as many people out of that church alive as possible. I'll take care of myself. I'm not worried about it. You know, if that's the way that the Lord wants me to go, I'll go. That goes back to that idea of confidence and working together with what the Lord has for us too. You know, like, if that's my time, it'll be my time. I'm not jumping in front of it, but, you know, my goal is, as a shepherd, again, let's keep as many people safe as possible.
That's right.
You've been the quietest I've ever seen you.
I told you I'm learning.
Well, so yours is more up and running, just kind of just getting up and running. Maybe it's up and limping at the moment, but it's starting. What does it mean to you?
To have the security team?
Yeah.
Tell you the honest truth, I don't think about it on a Sunday morning. It's like people come up to me and say, "Can you announce this?" I'll tell them, probably not.
Probably won't.
My mind is focused on the sermon, what I'm supposed to say, and then that's it, and I let the rest of it take care of itself, So, the only thing I did tell the security team, one of them said something about if a situation came in, because they sat up front closest to me, they said, "My job is to protect you." I said, "Well, that's all well and good, and I appreciate that. But I said, your main job is to protect them."
Yeah.
I said,
right.
Kind of like you said, if this is where I die, this is where I die. I don't care. Because, it's just promotion to heaven.
That's right.
That's the way I look at it.
Yep.
So,
That's right.
So I said, you take care of the church. I said, I'll let God take care of the rest of it.
Right.
But yeah, I never think about it. The only time I do think about it is when they don't get there on time. Now, being late is my pet peeve. I just can't stand it.
Yeah.
Like my wife says, if I'm not somewhere 30 minutes before I'm supposed to be, then I'm late.
Oh, yeah.
So.
I think it goes back to say that about volunteers. There's a volunteer mindset. There just is.
Yeah.
And sometimes people have more, for lack of a better word, pride in what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're just not as responsible, I guess, as
They feel that responsibility.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Some people are, and that's where the selection, we keep coming back to selection, but it's the person who, we're using who we have.
Yeah.
They're not getting paid to do this. Mm-hmm. There are people who want to be there, and they're like, "Oh, I'm late. It'll be all right." It's like, no, you're on safety team. We need you here.
Right.
And so I think, that's a whole mentality that's a whole nother topic too. We can get on something else, but
and in closing,
people who,
in conclusion.
But that's where our hearts want to do things, but if that's a volunteer mindset is totally different.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, that's where that confidence goes into. I think we've all probably been challenged by this, is that we have to look at the congregation we have and realize that that's the ones who God wants us to have.
Right.
So if He wants us to have a safety team, then He's put the people there, or He's going to bring them there. We don't have to mold them into our image of a safety team.
Right.
That's right.
They're going to stand out, but
Exactly.
you're going to have those right people at the right place at the right time. And some of them you're going to train, some of them you won't.
Yeah.
So, kind of in conclusion, as we are wrapping up here,
7 hours later.
yeah, hey, this has been a very fun conversation.
As the worship team comes forward, every head bowed, every eye closed.
Don't fall asleep during the final 20 minutes of our prayer. Yeah.
I want to give you guys the opportunity to kind of maybe share maybe a story or so that has happened that, something the safety team, security team has kind of been able to step in and.
Well, Brian here visited our church one day and we had to kick him out.
I did.
Okay.
And so
Completely naked.
I don't believe you cut that one kicking it out.
Didn't expect that one, did you? There we go. Completely naked. I tried to recreate the Adam and Eve thing, and I had no Eve. It was just me. It was terrible. I got tackled that day. Great safety team, by the way. Very gentle. Very gentle.
well, have you healed up?
Yeah. No bruises. God come down and says, "What are you doing?" No, this is just kidding.
Do we need to start that part?
No, I think it's great.
Completely naked.
Definitely want that in.
Well, I'll go for a story. It's not that one.
That was totally fake.
As we've been talking about how we're vetting people who are, kind of making sure that we got the right people in the right places. When we first implemented our team, we did not always think that way, and so we let a guy come in. We did background checks. Everything came clean. We did everything we thought we were supposed to do. But he actually, abused his position by getting phone numbers from our directory to ladies in the church, single or not, and it was contacting them, saying some very inappropriate things, to keep it PG-13. We actually had to ask him to leave the church, and so that's always an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah.
but it was a phone call, and it's do not come here again or we're calling the police. Mm-hmm. And so it's very, very, very important to do the extra steps as we've been talking about.
Yeah.
So our safety team had to turn around on our safety team, if you will, to kind of go after that. So you have to be very careful of who you let inside. You know, we talked about sheepdogs. Where you get the breeder from.
Yeah,
So, you know,
that's good. Yeah,
it's very, very difficult. That was one of the most difficult conversations I've had in ministry.
Absolutely.
Did you do this? No, it was an accident. I'm like, how is it an accident? You've done it 5 times.
Right.
And so, sending inappropriate pictures to women, calling women, single or not. So that was very, very, that was a disheartening thing for us. We think, well, we messed up. We did that. And so that was a lesson learned for sure. That's my story. It's terrible. That's my story.
Yeah. Mine's not near that bad.
That's pretty bad.
That's rough. But that shows that responsibility you take on it.
Absolutely.
Too, as the pastor, like this.
It rises and falls.
It stops at us. Like there's nobody higher than us to blame because it wasn't God's fault.
No.
It comes back to us.
That's right.
And just piggybacking on that, that's one thing I forgot to mention. We contacted our insurance company about it too, to ask them what they would want to see, and so they gave us some information as well. But we've had some events where people have a lot of ours did start at Vacation Bible School. When we saw the same thing you saw, Freddie, like you saw the influx of all these kids. This person drops them off and they're walking out the door with their cell phone on because like in churches at VBS time, you're just the daycare that week for a lot of kids. Like they're going to circle around for a whole summer dropping their kids off at different churches, and some of that, and that's a great opportunity for us, but some of that brings along with it, the negative. We've had during Vacation Bible School, a gentleman who was not with the kid at all pulled up on the parking lot while our kids were outside playing their games and went over to pull his kid aside to talk to him. And so our safety team and myself, when we were just in our infant stages there, we surrounded this. We were trying to be very respectful that who is this guy, because this kid seems like they know him, but we also really needed to make it clear at that point, like we've got to make some changes. We cannot allow that to happen ever again, because that ended well for us. It didn't backfire, but we've had instances of people trying to get into church during service. We had one, I guess probably the biggest one that sticks out in my mind would be the one where a gentleman came to our church. They were monitoring the cameras in the parking lot, saw him and whoever was in the car with him pull into the parking lot in a very weird and erratic fashion. Big dude gets out of his car. Big
You have
guy.
bad drivers on the northern side of Davis County, don't you?
We actually do. Yeah, we actually do. You should see it when it snows. It's brutal, So yeah, you would know, right? But they see this guy get out of his car and start to rapidly approach the church. He's coming in for something, And so the safety team goes to meet him at the door. Well, he meets them at the door first. About the time they get the door open, he's in the doorway. And he's about a foot taller than every other person. He's built like a linebacker. And he looks at the first guy he contacts. He says, "Get me to the pastor right now. We got to talk." And the guy immediately went into sheepdog mode, but he was so good with the guy, and he was able to contain it. He was able to sort of not calm him down as much as he did just get him out the door, because the philosophy of our safety team is don't let it inside. It all ends in the parking lot. That's their philosophy, is not to let anything come inside. So they wanted to get this guy back outside. So they escorted him back outside. They were walking with him, talking with him. Safety team was trying to cool him down. Eventually, our safety team paid him $10 or $20 to leave. They didn't say, "We're paying you this money to leave." The guy just said, he was in a hard time and he needed to talk to the pastor, and he was upset about some things. We still don't know where he's from, where he went. We have no idea. I've never seen him before in my life. He didn't look like the kind of guy who would follow me on Facebook or anything like that. Something was wrong, but he was coming straight for me that day, and he would have had to get through everybody else to come. And so our safety team, just through some wisdom, just not trying to engage, no hands were laid. It was great. They just looked at the guy and they got him off property. The safety team leader gave him $10 or $20 and said, "Hey, I want you to go fill your tank up and go get some lunch. I think you'll feel better if you go eat a little bit," And that was just something to get him off site. And we don't know how many of those things could have happened if it wasn't for the presence.
Right.
We've not had any serious problems at our church at all. do have some that I could tell you, but since we've had the security team, we had one guy came in and he walked in first, and then his family and his wife, and I happened to know his wife from another church. And he came in, big old guy, big tall guy, looked pretty rough, but he was carrying a probably 9-10 inch blade on the side of his hip. And while I was standing there, we hadn't had the security team over a month, maybe at the most. So I was standing back there at the door, and I was greeting people as they were coming in, and I shook his hand and talked to him, and then when I saw his wife, I thought, oh, okay, I know who these people are. Didn't know his name, but I knew who they are. I had 2 people on the security team come back and tell me, did you see that guy with the knife? Yeah, I saw him. Well, what do you think we ought to do? I said, I think you ought to be his best friend. I said, if you don't know who he is, you need to scoot right in beside of him and be his best friend.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah, that's right.
And the one that told me that ended up sitting at the very back at the church. We have little Sunday school classes behind the sanctuary, and we open up the doors, so they can seat people in the sanctuary. Mm-hmm. And so he sat all the way in the back, because when I stood up to preach, I thought, where is that guy? And I looked way back there in that back. Where's my guy? Sitting. And I thought, dude, you need to be up here with him if you don't know him.
I'm not getting cut today.
He said, but the exit's back here.
Yeah. They said, that guy with the knife's up there. I ain't going up there.
Situational awareness. We had an instance a few years ago in which an individual attended one of our services, and at the end of the service was so moved by emotion that stood up and began to confess some inappropriate things. It was not the right time. It was not the right place for exactly what they were confessing. The security team, so I was going to have to address it from being on the platform because it was getting uncomfortable. And so what I did, and Brandon alluded to this earlier in the podcast, I invited him to come to the front. The moment that I did that, the security team, both from the balcony and from the sides, because they have radios, they have earpieces, they were communicating constantly, and no one else was aware. They moved in almost as altar counselors. And I had a conversation. Everybody else thought I was praying with them, but I was saying, hey, wrong time, wrong message. God did not give you this. This is, right. And was able from that position to say, looked at the security team, take them to my office, and I'll meet you in my office. Mm-hmm. So once again, because that individual legitimately believed they had a word from God that they wanted to share with the congregation, it was uncomfortable, and it could have really turned to a place of embarrassment for him, for his family who was also attending. But it could have really, if the security team would have been more aggressive in that moment, it could have really escalated quickly. Mm-hmm. But they did a great job of de-escalating it. We also had a situation more recently in which, in our nursery area, there was some bruising and some marks on a child that was inappropriate and concerning. To the point where the children's minister communicated or contacted our executive pastor, and the executive pastor at the end alongside the security team addressed it with the mom and the dad. Because of that situation, it created a safe place and a safe environment for the mom to confess some abuse that was taking place at the hands of the dad and husband. Otherwise, that would not have taken place, and she would have continued to, and the children would have continued to be exposed to that. So I was thankful for that, and we were able to get that resolved and get that to the hands of the appropriate authorities moving forward.
I think that, for me, that highlights the whole point of ministry for us. That's right. Is that really, we've talked a lot about the one moment, the Sunday moment, the Wednesday moment, whatever, that we're there, as a congregation doing what the church is called to do when it gathers, but the church is called to scatter too. And we want to be there for our people. We want to be able to help them because they're living real lives in a real ugly world too. And so we want to be there to help them. That's a perfect illustration of that. Like you were able to help somebody in the situation of a church and the safety of a church that may not have gotten the help that they needed if you didn't have the right eyes on it.
That's right.
That's beautiful to be able to help somebody like that. That's beautiful to be able to do that. And I think it also illustrates the confidence we have to have as pastors that Because you will have those people who stand up and say, I got a word from the Lord, and we've got to be able to have the authority to say, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and we do have that authority
to tell
from
what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah, and the
in that
authority
time.
that we have from Scripture. I mean, that we at that moment are in charge.
That's right.
You know, and it's not an authority we want to throw around.
That's right.
But we are the person who has to cool that and calm that down, and we have the right to say. We have to come into this with the confidence to say, no, this is not going to happen right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I've had people come up to me even before they speak and say, hey, is it okay if I say this?
Yeah.
And if I discern that's the discernment of God. They say, okay, let's wait on that for next week. Let's talk more about that. Can we talk after service? Or, but that becomes a safety issue if they're vastly approaching the front, to me. And that's where someone stands up and says, hey, this is what's going on. But you're talking about kids and stuff like that. It's so important. Which we never thought about this before, but it's so important to have cameras inside each kid's class.
Yep.
That's what we have, and it's so. I was like, why do we do that? It's like, well, what if someone claims abuse? From a kid's worker, that gets into an insurance issue, and that gets into a law issue.
Yep.
And we have recording of everything that happens inside of that realm. That's supposed to be the safest place you could be on a Sunday morning for your kids.
That's right.
And so it's so important. You talked about stories, but we got on something else. That's what we do.
It's all good.
Rabbit trail.
We can come back.
Yeah, that's right.
Just give us a minute. A few more jokes, we'll bring it back in.
No, it's all good. No, this is what started out as an episode is probably going to be a 2-3 part series.
That's awesome.
Every sermon
that's
I
cool.
do goes that way.
Really?
2 verses.
You
3
too.
weeks, man. Like,
So
hey, I'm
you,
gonna preach
you
this
start
today.
out and then you realize,
next
I'm
week.
not getting but just this far. So
And the next.
He only prepares 12 sermons a year.
Turns into 50.
How'd you know? How did you know?
Oh, I love it. And Brian, we can make available Mount Zion's security handbook for those that would find it available. Maybe you can link that to
we'll link that in the show notes. Yep.
Good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, anybody that is looking for that, we will have that linked in the show notes. We are also going to set up a page on our website, impactdefense.online, specifically for church security. I think this is something that's very important. So we're going to set up a page. I will link that in there as well, if that's okay. And then we'll have some other information on there. So that means I just have more work to do.
And if anybody has any questions, I'm sure all of us are going to be available for any questions that people have are just getting started and trying to. That's what I'm kind of focused on. If I had to do this all over again, what kind of questions would I ask? And then this is so good. This is such a good resource. So I think everybody would be okay with being available for any kind of questions or anything.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll give you Brian's number.
Yeah, absolutely. I won't show up to your church naked. And it's not gonna
No, but you're right. I mean, I think that's something I just now thought about too. If I had to do this over again, I'm thankful for the way we did it, because for us it just worked out. It feels perfect.
Yes.
Nothing in this world's perfect, but it felt perfect for us. But I do know that that's an exception. Like this is a struggle for people. It's a struggle for their congregation, struggle for their ministry. It's a struggle for their attitudes. It's a struggle for logistics. I mean, not everybody has the right people in the church, or they don't see them at least right away. So any resource that's out there, just avail yourself of it.
That's right.
For sure.
Yeah. Because even you said, just sitting here listening, you got to think about other people. It's like, wait a second, I think that person worked really well.
That's
So,
really good.
a lot of these things, just kind of being in that thought process helps tremendously. So, guys, I have thoroughly enjoyed this. I might have to come up with an excuse just to do this all again at some point in time.
Get us talking about scripture, man. They'll be like,
Oh, man.
That's right.
right?
I get that. I just,
We got the recovering Calvinist. We got the full Arminian. I mean, we got all sorts of things to talk about. So this is going to be awesome.
but I do appreciate all 4 of you guys coming in today.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing
thank
this.
you.
I said, all dear friends, everybody was just a text message away. It's like, hey, would you like to do this? Is this all right? And everybody's like, absolutely, love to.
Right.
So that was great.
Of course, in our defense, you asked preachers if they wanted to talk.
It is true.
Can we
just saying.
Can I get a cup of coffee with you, Pastor? I've been going through some stuff.
Oh, wow.
What is this?
We got to compare notes, guys.
Yeah. I said, hey, would you mind being on a podcast? We're talking about church security, and there's free coffee, and everybody just jumped on that really quick.
We saw that last line.
You had me coffee.
Yeah,
Yeah,
coffee.
that's right.
Yeah, that's where you had us.
Donuts next time.
Oh man!
We can do that. So I have to up my game to get you guys back. Is that what I'm hearing?
So we're asking for all kinds of sponsors right now for donuts.
Yeah,
Impact
and there's
Defense
somebody
Fund.
listening to the podcast who just said, "I knew every preacher wanted money just because of that."
Can't get through it. Can't get
Way to go, Brian. Way to go.
without the app.
And we'll send you.
Some throwing stars.
We'll play over the church security manual for you right now.
We'll send you a free nunchuck. That's what
A
we're-
free nunchuck.
And a picture of Brian naked.
They all
Make sure
decide
that's
on.
not the host, Brian.
Guys,
They're out there.
And a fighting chimpanzee.
This is
We
the
have
intro.
really gone like all over the place. I just now realized like how
the gutter.
far out. Well, no, just how far out and around. Did you get some of the jokes?
This is the intro to this. Do you like chimpanzees, ninja stars, and naked pastors?
what
free coffee.
the Naked Pastor Podcast.
This is the podcast
I like it.
for you.
The Naked Pastor Podcast. That's what your thing's got to be doing. Like,
Okay.
there we go.
No one from my church is listening. Nobody from my church.
Well, it goes to the Philippines.
That's right. That's right.
This is
One guy in the Philippines going to work. This is. Oh, that's good.
I think we'll just cut it right
And
there.
And cut.
thanks, guys.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. As you can tell from the constant laughter, we all really did. I hope you were able to learn something from it. If church security is something that you are interested in, please contact us. We are very happy to reach out and work with you, even if we can't actually travel to where you are. We can give you some stuff to help you get started with security or safety at your church. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you in the next podcast. Goodbye.